What to do, what to do. This is the Brothers on Books podcast, where we find great books that will give you real value and actionable steps and have fun in the process. Please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendations, or if you'd like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind. A great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to would be greatly appreciated. And lastly, if you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. I'm Alex Allweil, and with me, as always, is my co-host Jack. And today we are talking about the Wim Hof method. So, Jack, how are you? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I just took a very cold shower, and for those listening through one of the podcast apps, we are in bathrobes because, well, we've just been Wim Hofing.
I also just took a cold shower, so I guess we're on the right track.
Yes.
So I guess. Go ahead.
So Al, where did you hear about Wim Hof?
So I heard about Wim Hof from a girl I used to date, and she, Wim. He talks. As I was reading the book, and I'm sure we'll get into this more. He was talking about all the skeptics, and it's sort of funny because as all these things I remember were being brought up to me, all of the things that he says people complained about or commented on were the exact things that I said about him. I said, he's a genetic freak. It's an anomaly. This isn't possible. And, I'm not entirely sure anymore. I think I was probably, honestly, I think I was probably a little closed off the first time I heard about some of the stuff. But I think I've slowly sort of become a believer. So you picked this book, correct?
I did. In our book draft, I did pick this book. I'd been studying at Barnes & Noble frequently, and it's often laid out right in the front. So it's getting a lot of press. A lot of people are reading it. And I was kind of intrigued. And then when I heard he was all about cold exposure, I even thought more about it because last summer I felt great and I was jumping in the pool like every day and it was quite cold. So I can kind of see where it was coming from. So that's kind of what interested me.
Okay. So I guess how did you feel after you finished reading this? Or what were your thoughts sort of going along?
I think a lot of the concepts of breathing and cold exposure really aren't all that new, but I kind of liked how he's now taking it to the next level and trying to get the skeptics to believe by actually getting it tested through these trials at these universities, both in the US and elsewhere. What did you think?
Sort of the what I thought was the first time I heard about this, I thought it was just utter nonsense. After reading it, I think I sort of agree with most of what he's saying. And I guess at the end of the day, sort of my position is, the benefits he's espousing are great. And, if it really doesn't work, like what's the harm to you? So I guess the way I feel about it is there's no harm in trying what he's saying to just see if you do honestly feel better. Mm-hmm. And I have been doing the cold showers for the past week. I have not been as diligent about the breathing, but I think I'm going to start my mornings with his breathing exercises. It sounded like in the book that he has an app where he'll guide you through some breathing exercises. I don't know.
Yes, I believe it's free also.
Yeah. So I think I'm definitely going to download that and then probably try and. It sounded like he said 4 days. So I'll at least do it for probably 2 weeks. Just see how I feel after.
Yeah. I mean, back to like how you said he was like a genetic freak. I mean, some of the things he's done, I think he has like 20 plus Guinness records And I mean, some of them were just nuts. Like he went up Everest in only shorts, no shirt, did like a half marathon above the Arctic Circle
Also in shorts,
in
no shirt.
shorts. And
I think
he ran a marathon in some desert in Africa with no
no
water.
water. Yeah, that's insane.
And then on YouTube, you can go watch him swim under the ice. And I think it's like 100 meters. So basically a football field under the ice. He swam. I mean, that's pretty crazy. So you kind of can see where people were like, well, he's just a freak. But
yeah, I mean, also there are videos of him just sitting in baths of ice for like, an hour or something,
yeah.
and just feels totally fine.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's especially after you hear some of these studies, it's sort of hard to continue to sort of doubt what he's saying, at least to the level where I think you have to take what he's saying seriously, that it does have serious benefits.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, one of the things he's really like attacking is like the premise of is that a lot of things that we assumed were like involuntary in our bodies, like we kind of can tap into, and that's kind of interesting.
yeah, that was actually the first thing that I was ever told, was that he had complete control over his immune system, and I just sort of like I got a little aggressive with that statement. I'm like, it's just not possible. Uh, and I think that sort of the person I was talking to, we were sort of coming from a semantical difference in what we were saying. So I would say he clearly, I think, has demonstrated that he has severely strengthened his immune system and made it right. Like, because there's some study where he essentially injected himself
with E. coli.
Right. And I think they ended up going back and he trained like 4 or 5, or not 4 or 5, it was more like 12 people, right?
Right. I think there was like 16,000 people they injected with E. coli. Every one of them got sick except for him.
And then he went back and trained more people in his method, and they also didn't get sick.
Right.
Isn't that correct?
Yep.
Right.
So yeah, because basically people were saying, well, you're just a freak. And then he said, no, I'm just tapping into what
right.
what I've been given. And I can show anyone how to do this and control this. And sure enough, he did.
Yeah. And where 13 people is not a huge amount, that's you have to, I think, take it seriously when everyone else gets sick, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So should we go through the 3 pillars of his method?
Yeah.
So we just touched upon each one of them. So the first one is breathing. And he talks about just like deep in and out about 30 times. And then you inhale like for as long as you can, and then out, and like another 10 seconds in. And then you repeat that 3 or 4 times every morning. And he's basically saying you're making your body less acidic. I don't know if you want to touch on like alkaline versus acid. He kept using that he's making his body more alkaline.
Yeah. So I think what he means by that is he's actually just making his blood more basic.
Okay.
So there's a pH scale, right? It goes from 0 to 14. pH 7 is totally neutral. Lower than 7 is acidic. Above 7 would be considered basic. Your body has a natural buffer in your blood. I think your blood is supposed to be, I believe your natural pH level of your blood should be around 6.5. So slightly acidic, but very close to neutral. And what you're doing when you're exhaling a lot, so you're expelling a lot of CO2, and there's a natural, what's called equilibrium in your body that CO2 is part of. And as you expel a lot of CO2, you'll shift this equilibrium where you essentially then generate more CO2. So you're making your blood less acidic through that. And that's why it's becoming more, I guess, as he's saying, alkaline. I'm not entirely to be fair, I was thinking about this for a lot, and I wish I would have sort of went and gone and read about it, but I'm not entirely sure. Like, your blood is naturally slightly acidic, so I don't know.
Yeah, he kind of kept saying that his goal was to really be alkaline all the time.
Right.
I guess is that to you could remove the acid from your muscles continuously or something.
Yeah, you would be pulling through. Well, he was talking about lactic acid, right?
Yeah, in your muscles, right?
That I'm not entirely sure, because I mean, it would be part of it, I guess, but I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't really know.
I mean, the only note I had written down here on that was when you're actively inhaling, you're getting more oxygen and that's getting more ATP.
Right.
And the ATP, I guess, is used to break down lactic acid.
I mean, ATP in general is just how your body stores energy. So yeah, okay. that would be. So he starts talking about, as you're getting more O2, you're getting more energy. So it goes through this sort of long process, and in the end, you split oxygen to generate water, and that generates ATP, and that is what you use. It's almost, you should think of it as just like a battery. That's how your body stores energy.
Okay. So it's like we're recharging the batteries.
I think that is a way to think about it. Yeah.
Okay. So the second pillar is cold exposure.
Yeah. So I guess he started the cold exposure by just going out into lakes, right? And just kind of chilling in the cold in the Netherlands.
Yeah, in Amsterdam.
Right. Doing God knows what. So, but what he's really, I mean, I guess you used your pool and you sort of saw benefits of that.
Yep.
But really what he's saying is that every day you should just sort of take a cold shower, or you should end your shower with just it on the cold water for, I mean, just start off with 15 seconds and then slowly work your way up.
Go ahead.
I have been taking cold showers, and I do feel like I feel better.
Yeah. I mean, one thing, as soon as you get in the cold, I mean, you immediately become alert, because the only thing you can think of is
I'm cold.
Yeah, I'm cold, and your mind kind of goes clear, and you're just ooh, I just want to get through this. He keeps bringing up this phrase, hormetic stress.
Yeah.
And he kind of talks that this is acute stress
that
makes us stronger and healthier in just low doses.
So, yeah, actually, do you know the first time I heard that phrase?
No, when?
I was actually reading while I was listening to Talib. Yeah, Talib talks about that a lot, because he sort of says the same thing, very high. He says you want really high stress in minimum amounts, and that will make you stronger, because you can then sort of recover from it. And it's like lifting, right? You lift heavy weights a couple times, and that's maximum stress, and then your muscles sort of adapt and repair, and you become stronger. But what you don't the premise is, what you don't want is, you don't want continual minimum stress, which is what I think what he would say is most Americans and most people in the world live under, is just continual minimal stress. And that's very bad, because you don't have the chance to recover.
Yeah. And he doesn't just mean physical stress, right? Because he's kind of saying any stress is.
Oh, yeah. It's mainly, I think, I would say mainly emotional.
From your job, or whatever.
You have bills to pay, kids to take care of, a wife's, I guess I've heard. So, some people have said, it seems like wives can be stressful. I'm not saying who.
Oh, man. So
hopefully that doesn't get you into too much trouble.
Yeah. I don't know if the wife really listens to this yet, but this can be the test.
Oh God. Yeah, I guess we'll see if if I get an angry phone call in a couple of days.
Yeah. So, I mean, I did have some notes that, I mean, it kind of talks about how he became the Iceman. I guess that's his nickname. And, he was going into this park in Amsterdam. And for a while, he was just squatting in this empty house and kind of just hanging around with artists and what he would describe as open-minded and creative people. Um, but he talks of like a fairly free lifestyle. I guess, what were you thinking about that? It's kind
Well,
of unique.
I mean, not to like really get off topic, but like his opinion on squatting, I didn't really agree with,
Yeah.
which was just like, oh, someone owns this house, but they're not using it, so I should be able to use it because they're not using it. I don't agree with that, but I mean, to each their own. Uh, yeah, he definitely lived an incredibly interesting life, or is living an incredibly interesting life.
Yeah, it seemed like he just had so much like freedom to just explore different things. And like he's talked about how he went on a bike ride to Spain. Like that, like in my mind, it just seems like so like not an option. But in Europe, it stuff feels closer. I haven't heard of many people like bike like long distances in the US really. But maybe I'm just not in that circle.
Right, definitely not. I guess for us, it would be bike. I mean, going from the Netherlands to Spain would essentially be like going cross state here, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Uh,
Yeah.
and just to do that, I don't know anyone that's done that, at least here. I do know a good number of people that have biked cross country in Europe for some reason. Maybe it's
Uh-huh.
just more accepted there.
Yeah, or
Uh,
maybe there's more bike paths, or I don't know.
yeah, that would be, I mean, I don't even know how I would start to like try and, if I wanted to like bike to Alabama, I mean, obviously I would just have to bike south, but I guess it would be all on back roads.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, okay, well, moving on to the third pillar. The third pillar was kind of like just mental positivity. And I was getting the sense, and I think he actually said it in the end, that kind of the first two pillars kind of lead to the third. Like
Yeah.
if you want to start thinking positively, like start doing things like physically, and then that will transform mentally. Is that kind of how you were
Yeah, I mean,
reading that?
sort of what I got was like, or I sort of viewed it as sort of like a feedback loop, right? Like you do the breathing, you do the cold exposure, and like you start, I mean, who knows which leads to which, but like you start to feel better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then like when you start to feel better, you probably think like, oh, this is working. And then you probably start doing it more and you're more diligent, and it just kind of all leads into itself. And as you do it more, you start to feel better, and then you're more positive, and then it kind of just keeps going and going. Uh, that's sort of what I thought.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like a discipline loop kind of thing. I mean, some of the things he was saying, like the things he saw in people's transforming like illness is pretty remarkable.
yeah,
I
like
mean, people
the
taking,
testimonials.
yeah, like taking medications for like colitis and then all of a sudden being able to get off of them just by doing these breathing and cold exposure exercises.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing that he talks a lot about is like reducing inflammation, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of diseases like colitis, Crohn's, IBS, cancer, diabetes, when you have those diseases, a lot of times your cells are in a constant state of inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So like inflammation, and what I've gathered, like inflammation and minor, like you obviously at some point need inflammation. Like that's your body's natural response to like cuts and scrapes, and
Mm-hmm.
like sort of foreign invaders. Like that's how you deal. That is how you deal with it. But when you're constantly inflamed, that usually leads to some problems. That would be sort of like what we were just talking about. That would be constant minor, like right, constant minor
Mm-hmm.
stresses.
Yeah.
That is bad. So cold, like being in cold water, right? Like when you get when you get a huge bruise or something, or you sprain an ankle, or people say to ice it, right? Like, so
Yep.
why are they saying to ice it? To reduce inflammation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think he is probably right. Like if you do constant cold exposure, and then the breathing is not as intuitive to me as to why that would help reduce it, but I'm sure it probably plays some role. You probably do reduce the inflammation. And then yeah, maybe that probably then helps with the diseases. But I mean,
Yeah.
some of the ones that were like, I think he had one in there where the person said like they had cancer, and then all of a sudden they didn't have cancer. I mean, find that a little skeptical, but
Uh-huh.
you know,
Yeah. And then, I mean, just how he was able, I think he took a couple groups up super high elevations, like quicker than was kind of the
deemed
guideline or
right,
deemed
deemed possible.
responsible and um, kind of interesting on that. I did find that he talks about it a little bit. There's that Mount Sinizka, or in it looked like it was technically in the Czech Republic, but he kept referring to it as the Poland expedition. So I think they start in Poland and then they
Poland,
go up.
yeah,
And I mean, these guys, if you go on YouTube, you can look up this Mount Sinizka Poland expedition, Wim Hof, and you'll see these guys all shirtless walking up in the snow, and then they jump into these waters that are freezing, and they're all like hoo ha hoo ha. They're all like chanting together. It's kind of cool.
yeah. I mean, I think he does talk about like when you do the breathing with other people, it becomes like I got the impression that it like became like almost synergistic, like everyone feeds off each other
Yeah.
and you get into it more.
I mean, it's kind of like when we're running, when we used to play a lot of soccer, and like for soccer practice, when you're part of a team, it seems like you can get through more when you're seeing other people do it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like if you're running sprints, if someone else is right beside you, if you can go a little bit further, a little bit harder than maybe you could by yourself.
Yeah,
So
you
he
can
kind of,
scale yourself to them.
yeah.
That's sort of how I think of it.
So he definitely seems very like camaraderie based and all about the group.
I mean, he seems like he really like just loves life, and that's sort of what he talks about a lot, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, he really just like wants to help people, and it seems like that is his goal.
Yeah. And at
Uh,
this point, he's trying to, I think he phrases like flesh out the truth, and he wants the skeptics to come out, and he wants everything to be tested. And actually, there was he did something at Wayne State, didn't he? Well, one of the studies
he,
was,
yeah, one of the studies was done at Wayne State. Something
yeah,
about
was it,
I think that was his core body temperature.
or was that the
He
one where
could
he like literally like lifted up his hand and was able to heat up his hand like on the spot? Or was that, I
I
don't
think
remember.
I think they put him in an they were cycling cold water onto him, and he maintained his internal core temperature for like an hour
Uh huh.
under cold water. I believe that was
Hmm.
the study,
Okay.
which yeah, it doesn't seem possible. But he did it. I will say I feel like I have if I would have heard this probably 10 years ago, I probably would have been like, this is ridiculous. This is impossible. This is stupid. But yeah, I think there's a lot to it, I would
Yeah.
say. I definitely agree with a lot of what he was saying.
Yeah. And I guess for me, like I've had problems with like my ankles and hips. And like last summer when I was jumping in the cold water, it definitely helped. I did feel less like inflamed. And then when I was back in Michigan in March, I was going in the lake
Like,
there, and it does feel good. I mean, you really
yeah,
feel
it
alive when
does.
you
Right.
shock the system. I mean, there's yeah, all your other worries go away. Like
Yeah.
that's what you're thinking about right then and there.
I
How
mean,
cool.
the other thing that's like sort of weird, like I like believe so much in like the health benefits of saunas, right?
Uh-huh.
Like I try to take a sauna like probably, 2 to 3 times a week. And in like traditional Finnish fashion, like what do you do when you're done with the sauna is you jump in the lake.
Ah,
Uh,
really?
right. In
Okay.
the traditional way, you're supposed to rotate from the hot to the cold. So a lot of the first saunas were built on like lakes in Finland where they would heat themselves up and then go jump into the water and come back.
Ah, that's
Um,
kind of like what the ones we went to in Austria were kind of like that. And also like these bathhouses I went to, they always had yeah, an ice bath next to
right,
the
because
saunas.
you're supposed to go in after you sauna,
Yeah. Okay.
shock the system.
Shock
A
the
lot,
system.
a lot of
Well, on that
shocking.
note, you wanna hit an ad?
Yeah, pickleball, the greatest sport you've never heard of. Pickleball is the fastest growing leisure sport in the United States. It is a mix between tennis and table tennis. However, don't let the average age of participant in this sport fool you. The game has fierce competition, and only the will of a champion can thrive. Go buy some paddles and balls and play pickleball, the greatest sport you've never heard of. So with that said, I'm a little bummed. I don't have any tournaments planned out in the next month and a half or 2 months or so. So I've kind of hit sort of a low point. I need to find something to go play in.
Yeah.
Um,
And you are moving cities, so that's big news.
I am moving cities as well. Yeah, I did see that in about a month and a half after I moved, there is a tournament in Birmingham that
Cool.
I plan on playing in that.
Yeah.
And then hopefully I can get a couple in relatively locally to Nashville before I leave. But yeah, it's a fun sport, and there's been a push to get pickleball in the Olympics since we're in the middle of the Olympics.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think it's I think it's probably honestly big enough in the States right now, but I guess you need it to be big enough in like seven. I think the cutoff was like 70 countries. And I don't think
Ah,
it's not quite there yet.
yeah.
Um,
I remember at that last pickleball tournament we went to, they were looking for like ambassadors.
yeah,
So you could
actually,
be like the ambassador to Italy or
right.
ambassador to
Yeah.
whatever.
Try and grow the sport.
Yeah.
Uh, Actually, one of my friends just got a paddle and he became a paddle ambassador. So that was kind of cool.
Huh.
So he got, they send him all the demos and some bags and some clothes, and he gets a discount.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Uh, yeah, have you and Elena been playing?
Not recently, really.
Sure,
Fortunately, mostly been running and gym, but
sure.
we're scheduled to play Wednesday, so we'll see.
Just the two of you, or are you playing with someone?
Yeah, just two of us.
Sure.
We normally play whoever shows up, but
Did I tell you I met a pro from Charlotte that I played with?
very nice. We
Yeah.
have good courts here, so
Yeah, he played at, I couldn't remember those courts names, but that's where he played. He's a
yeah.
nice guy. I think his name was Chris.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So with that said, Jake, you want to give us a sort of just like, I don't know, you want to give a rundown of Wim's life?
Well, I know he attributes his start to a disciplined life as a paper boy, and he talks about in the winter, like having to bike through the icy streets of Amsterdam, getting up very early to deliver these papers. Um, and I think he started pretty early with the cold exposure, going to that Beatrix Park. Um, it sounded like the passion for like spreading the word on this and actually getting it tested. Like he was kind of just going off experience. Like, yeah, I mean, he felt like, he wasn't getting sick. He felt strong. He felt, this and that. But it sounded like, unfortunately, his wife committed suicide. Um, and I think he had four kids at the
Four
time, or
kids at a
six,
time.
four
Four.
at the time.
He's got six
And
total.
yes,
Four with his first wife.
yeah. So it was it seemed like a very rough life. His wife sounded like she was from the Basque Country in Spain, and they were going back and forth. And then when she committed suicide, he was kind of like searching, and the peace he could find was in the cold. So I think that's kind of what brought him back to that. And then the passion caught on, and he really tried to spread the word and kind of let the skeptics test out his theories. So
I definitely I don't know if you got this, but I definitely got a sense of like bitterness sort of in his words from like people that have doubted him. Uh
Uh-huh.
did you feel that?
You mean bitterness towards like well, he does bring up that a lot of people, make money off of a lot of these drugs and these procedures and whatnot. So he was kind of saying, there's not an incentive that everyone wants to hate on his ideas because, their livelihood depends on it somewhat.
Right. So actually I guess this is the next section, but my favorite quote he had was something along the lines of, is it about medication or is it about healing?
Mm-hmm.
Uh and I feel like I sort of had similar thoughts uh before at like universities
Uh-huh.
where I've worked because I feel like everyone, and I do think most doctors when they become doctors do become doctors because they want to help people. But I have gotten the distinct impression before that uh, like certain projects that we were working on
Uh-huh.
that they're billed to try and like better human health, and they're just complete failures. But instead of just letting the project die, I feel like it has been constantly put up for re-renewal to get just more money, just so we can keep working on it more to continue to show that it's just not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Which sort of that his comment made me think about that because, like in my opinion, if the project isn't working, you need to know when to quit, right? Like you need to just let it die and move on to
Mm-hmm.
something else that has more potential. But that does not appear to be the way that things work a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you have any?
So are you kind of saying that the current system is he's saying it's broken and why are we trying to keep it afloat? Is that kind of what
No, what
or
I'm saying is if, well, sort of in regard to him, like, well, for his statement, like, there's no harm, really, there's no harm in trying his system, right?
right?
Yeah, but like obviously, like I think like modern medicine is obviously very important. Like there are medications that clearly work and help people's lives, like so you do need those.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, like I think medications clearly are overprescribed, and people have, in my opinion, people have a dependency on meds.
Mm-hmm. And also, I mean, you could have a study that it could show a drug is statistically significant on improving this metric or whatever, but there might be some other effect of it
Right,
that might be
exactly.
negative. And I think he's kind of saying, okay, well, even if we're good at treating what's happening, there might be a better way to just prevent everything.
Yeah. I mean, so like my basic opinion that I have is that, you know, unless I feel like I really, really need some medication, I won't take anything.
Yeah.
And that's for the most part how I live. So
Yeah.
I don't ever really take Advil. I don't really ever take ibuprofen. I mean, it has to be a like massively, massively bad headache for me to take any of that.
Yeah. I don't,
Uh,
I try not to take anything these days. I mean,
right,
I used to kind of take like, I mean, I feel like I would oftentimes like just go see the doctor for everything just to make me feel better mentally.
right.
Um, and take their word as like, the absolute king of all king words, I guess. And now I think I have been changing a little bit the last couple of years on when I would go see a doctor.
Like, yeah, I mean, like what blood pressure medication is, I think maybe a good example. Like, if your blood pressure is a little high, I think you're probably better off trying to make life changes that will result in a lower blood pressure to live a healthier life. If your natural resting like blood pressure is like 200 over 160, yeah, your heart's probably about to explode. You should probably take the medication to, help you in the short term because, life changes are hard and taking a pill is easy. And I think that's just how a lot of people live. They
Mm-hmm.
would rather take a once daily pill and think that they've alleviated all their problems than try to actually make some changes in their life. Uh,
Yeah, everybody wants that like easy button, right? Like the Staples commercial, right?
right. Yeah.
That easy button. Just
Yeah.
want to hit it.
Yeah.
So,
Very, very true.
um, so you kind of said your favorite. So are we interested in what was that quote you said? Are we interested in healing? Or are we interested? Or what was your quote you
Are
said?
we? I don't exactly remember the quote, but the general premise was: Are we interested in medication or are we interested in healing?
Ah, yeah. So that was your favorite? Did you have
Yeah.
any other quote or any message that you'll take away?
I mean, the message is like, just his general message, like of what to, like how he lives his life and what to do, like with the breathing and the cold exposure. And I think having, like, honestly, the positivity. I mean, it can become very, I think, difficult to constantly have a positive mental outlook.
For sure.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, what about you?
Um, so I'll definitely continue doing the cold showers. I did, and I think we've kind of talked about this in other podcasts, but like this idea of people greatly overestimate kind of the effects they can have on others, but underestimate the effects they can have in themselves. And there's a quote. It's page 30, and I'll read it. Okay, it goes, it's reminiscent of the fable about the wise men coming together and asking, what do we do about the soul, since people have made such a mess out of it? Put it on the highest of mountains, one man says. But the people crawl up the mountains like ants, find the soul, and make it a trophy. So the wise men decree, put it at the bottom of the deepest seas. But the people build underwater vessels and dive down under. They find the thing and bring it to the surface and put it in a museum. So the wise men say, put it beyond the farthest planet. But the people build spacecrafts and venture off and find it. They bring it back and make warfare over it. The wise men are confounded because none of them knows where to put the soul. And then one stands up and says, I've got it. Put it in the people themselves, since they never look there. And that's the end of the quote. And I love that quote because everyone wants the pill from the outside. They just want the easy button or whatever. And I just like that idea that he's saying a lot of the answers are just inside of yourself, and you can kind of train your body to take care of itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like sort of, I think, a tour de force on just, yeah, personal responsibility, taking care of yourself, doing what's really best for you. Uh, I mean, that's really the message, right? Like, do
Right.
do these things because they are good for you.
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
I think a quote at the end, like something along the lines of, we've gone to space, we've put a man on the moon, but like we
Be
as like
happy.
a we can't even be happy, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like, so how pathetic are we?
Like we've gotten away from what actually makes us like animals, kind of.
Yeah.
Um,
Because
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it seems like I don't think. I mean, it's obviously impossible to know, but it seems like, at least during modern medicine, it seems like mental health issues have progressively become a bigger problem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I
It
mean,
seems like it to me.
he talks a lot about how we're just so comfortable now, like we've gotten away from putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations. And he says, just forcing yourself to take that 2-minute cold shower, you're actively putting yourself in a stressful situation, and then you just get better at handling stressful situations because now we're in climate controlled buildings all day, sitting down, not really moving. I mean, just wearing clothes, he says, alters our vascular, I guess, ability. Whereas like if you were just naked, you'd have to be better about regulating your temperature. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but we've gotten too comfortable.
Comfortable, right? You need to. I mean, I think one of the main takeaways is that you need to shock yourself.
Yeah,
you need to put yourself in uncomfortable. I mean, it's just a good way, I think, to live life is you push yourself through uncomfortable situations and you grow from it.
Yeah. I mean, he was kind of saying like we could actually like alter our genes from the prior generations, like being so comfortable. Like we could. What did you think of that? I had never really heard of like I can actually alter my genes and then pass those genes on.
I mean, I sort of got what he was saying, but like I didn't think a whole lot about that. I mean, I get what he's saying to an extent, but I had never heard of that. I mean, I guess it sort of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you want to talk about, I guess you've been doing the other shocking of the system that we haven't spoken about. You want to talk on that a little bit?
Wait, what are you talking about exactly?
The fasting.
Fasting. Yeah. So, well, my wife has been writing a book on long-term fasting. She's been on two 10-day fasts in rural Austria. And she kind of got me to start doing these 36-hour fasts. And I guess it's another type of hormetic stress. And I would say that during it, I sometimes hate the world. And then come Monday night, when I'm looking forward to my Tuesday morning meal, I feel a little better and I feel like I accomplished something. So I've had kind of mixed feelings. It's kind of tough when I'm working on Mondays when I've been fasting, but and on these 10-day fasts, they're not like actually not consuming any calories. They're basically consuming liquids that equate to about 500 calories a day, but it's all liquid form. They're not chewing at all. And that's basically what I've been doing 36 hours from Sunday night to Tuesday morning. And, it's kind of interesting. I guess people can check it out and see what they think. I've kind of had mixed feelings about it. I think it would be easier if I wasn't working, but have you tried it a couple of times? Right?
I've done it a couple of times. I mean, sort of the same thing. I have a hard time. I have a hard time doing it during the week, and then I just have a hard time doing it because I end up running a lot just throughout my normal day, and I'm just so hungry. I feel like a lot of times I'm going to pass out. But there is a good amount of. I have read a good number of reports saying like sort of intermittent fasting like that does really clean out your system and especially kills aberrant cells and potentially cancer cells as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that inherently makes sense because cancer cells need way more energy because they're constantly dividing. That's the definition of cancer. So they end up dying. Like if you just sort of you can almost starve them out per se.
Yeah, I think is that autophagy. Elena talks about that, how it's like a process that like cleans out the
your system.
Dead cells and all the bad stuff. So yeah, it's worth trying. Just see how you feel and hopefully you don't get too hangry.
Right. Actually, I think Taleb also talked about intermittent fasting as well.
Oh, I mean, I know a lot of my friends do like the just even 12 hours or 14, 16-hour fasts each day. They seem to have good results. They are losing weight. If I don't really know. I mean, I have not been losing weight, but I do feel.
Well, I don't think the goal of the fast should be to lose weight.
It's not. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is not. It's just supposed to have health benefits.
Yeah.
So, okay. Got anything else?
I mean, I think I'm just, I'm gonna really try and dive into the breathing. I've been good with the cold showers. I'm gonna try and really dive in, do the 20 or 30-minute breathing exercise every morning when I wake up, and hopefully when we record our next episode, I can have more definitive opinions on how I feel.
Okay. Think we should add the Poland expedition to our bucket list?
I was thinking about it. I was thinking about going there to try it.
That would definitely be an experience.
That it would.
So, yeah, I mean, for the listeners, I definitely encourage you to go on YouTube and look up some of his things. They're pretty incredible. So with that, please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendations, or if you would like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind. A great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to this would be greatly appreciated. And lastly, if you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. And with that, what do we have for the next time, Al?
We are doing, I don't know if it would be, maybe you could call it a cult classic.
I think it is.
I would maybe just cult following. I don't think it's considered a classic yet. But we were doing, I don't think it's been around long enough to be a classic. We were doing Jacob Lund Fisker's Early Retirement Extreme, also known as ERE by the Cool Kids.
Yep.
And I think we're going to have a special guest, Jack?
I think we are. We are going to have Jacob Lund Fisker himself join us to discuss it.
It should be a good one.
Yeah. So that should be very cool and very good listen.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So with that, I think I'm going to say goodnight, Al.
All right. Hi, Jeff.
Night.